Creepers left to rise, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to steal my lady. Spiders in the mirror and things can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spear drinkers, Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, don't make a sound. The clock won't turn around. Ooh, you turn around. 2,000 little fires. And ooh, your circle is spreading. Slowing things down when I wanted to race. Catching up again when you try to chase. Feels like we're playing space. You always find a way to make up, right? Even when we're such a fly. Even when tensions run high. You gotta soften up your sleeves, girl. You're never enough, babe. Dreaming of those eyes, best part of my life. 'Cause when we make love, babe, the world don't make a sound. The clock won't turn around.
Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Like honestly, every time that I film with my phone, like I've got a pile of boxes and books over there. And I'm always like, girl, you need to like clean that out so you don't always have that in your background. Anyway, hello, welcome back to the vlog. Today I am starting a vlog that is all books that Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl has picked for me. So I'm very excited about this. We decided on some tropes for each other. I picked some books for her too. And yeah, so the tropes we decided on were love triangle and second chance romance because we both like those. So the books that she recommended for me are, one is a trilogy. It's called The Cityscape Affair by Jessica Hawkins. This is a contemporary romance, love triangle. There is cheating. I'm going to talk about that in a minute because that's the one I'm reading right now. And then she also picked for me Between Hello and Goodbye by Emma Scott. I believe that's the title. I'm so bad at remembering titles. Let's see. Yeah. This is her recent release. I believe this is also a contemporary romance, but this one is a second chance, and I have started that one too. There is no audio for it, so I've been working on it for several days, and I am really enjoying that one. That one has a lot of great banter and a really fun setup with the potential for some heaviness because the prologue is fairly heavy that goes into the hero's background. So let's talk about Come Undone, the first book in the Cityscape Affair trilogy. So now, when Cheyenne picked these for me, she's like, I'm assuming you're okay with cheating. And typically, like, I don't enjoy reading cheating. You know, it's just not something that I actively seek out. I don't love reading cheating. There are only maybe like 2 books, and specifically really just one, that I feel like have done cheating where it worked for me, which sounds really weird to say. So, but because this is a love triangle and our heroine is married when the book begins, when this trilogy begins, there's going to be some cheating involved. So basically our heroine is a businesswoman. She's married to a man. It sounds like they are content, but they are lacking passion. She's not super happy, it sounds like, to be married. It feels like they're setting the stage for her to express that her marriage isn't necessarily happy. Like, it's not abusive, nothing. At least at this point, I am about halfway through the first book. Nothing is abusive about her husband, but there is a big sense of he's checked out and he's not super interested. I'm so sorry about the puppies. He doesn't seem to be super interested in meeting her needs, both physically and, emotionally. He kind of wants to push things to go his way. So, yeah, I am very enjoying this. Like, my initial impressions of this book are it's very soapy, and I mean that in a good way, and that the drama is high without going into melodrama, and it is compulsively readable. Like, you want to know what's happening, you want to keep reading, so I'm very entertained with that. So that's going to be the intro. I'm going to continue reading, and I'll check back in when I have more to say. Alright, friends, so I took a lunch break, and I finished the first book, which was, why can I not remember the titles of these? What does that say? Undone. Come Undone. I finished Come Undone, and I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. The story was very compelling. Like, the thing that I liked the most about this was, like, how invested I was in what was going to happen. Like, I felt like for so much of this book, I was on, like, the edge of my seat trying to figure out if she was actually going to, like, give in to the new guy. And the book ends, like, right after their affair, and she's very distraught. And so I've started book 2, which is Come Alive. And when I got this audiobook, I got the bundle of all 3 for audio, and it was like, it was the series, the bundle with all 3 is on KU for, free. And then if you download the KU books, then you can get the audio books for like $7. So I did that. And when I first looked at it, I'm like, this is a 30-hour audiobook. Immediately I was regretting. But it went super fast. Like, I just couldn't stop listening to it. This series for me is very addicting. I don't want to stop listening. I want to just keep reading, and I'm just being very entertained. So the reason that I gave this one 4 stars is largely because for me, anytime that cheating enters into a book, I really and truly need it to be stronger than attraction. And for so much of this book, I mean, that's how I feel about any romance, but I feel like specifically when you're talking about breaking up a marriage or doing something that would have the potential to do that, like, it cannot just be lust. So in the beginning, when it was sort of focusing on, she'd been unsatisfied her whole life with her partners, and she felt differently with this guy, I was like, if this is the basis for them getting together, I'm going to be very upset. But the way that the author does that, and it does end up being the man she has an affair with, is definitely the first guy to make her, have a good time. I felt like this author was able to really capture the way that they felt for one another in a way that felt very true to, like, the moment when you meet someone in real, when you meet someone and you feel something almost initially on that meeting. And it is not just, this is a beautiful person, right? Because there's a difference between acknowledging beauty and attractiveness and feeling a connection, right? And I think that a lot of times when I'm dissatisfied, when the basis is on the physical connection with a couple, it's because that is the compelling factor, is the way that it's described that they feel based on how attractive that other person is. And it has to be something else. So I really liked how this author made me very convinced that by the time the book was over, because early on I was really skeptical. I was feeling like this is very much setting up the husband to be the bad guy, this new man who finds her so attractive. Like, he had an element almost of a predatory nature where it seemed for a lot of the book what he wanted was a conquest, because they didn't have any interaction other than just meeting one another and sparks, So by the time the book ended, I really felt like she had done a good job of building up their connection so that it was more than just, this is a very attractive person and I want them, because there's nothing strong enough about that for me to believe cheating was a necessary story component, So I enjoyed it a lot. I'm not sure. I mean, finishing the first book, I feel like it's very clear who she's going to end up with. But there's 2 books left, and I really hope that she makes the other guy, I hope she makes a compelling case for the other guy, because I want to feel the angst and feel like there's, how are you going to choose, you know? Because at this point I feel like your husband isn't necessarily a jerk, but this other guy is so much better, it's clear who you should be with, you know? So the husband still doesn't know. I don't know. I'm entertained. It feels like a drama that I'm watching, like a very high angst, high drama, and it's a good time. So it wasn't completely emotionally satisfying for me, but it was very entertaining. And the writing is solid. The writing isn't drawing attention to itself. It feels very immersive, and I like that a lot. So finished the first one. I'm on the second one, and I've got to go ship a bunch of orders, so I will probably just listen to it as much as possible today. So I'll check in with you probably once I finish the second book. Hello friends. This lighting is terrible. It's dark. It's late at night. I'm in my studio. It is so late, and I finished shipping, and I also finished the second book. So the second book is Come Alive, and I should have set you up on a tripod. I'm just gonna hold you like this. So I quite enjoyed book 1. I felt like it was a really good setup for a love triangle. I felt like the angst was, maybe not angst so much as the anticipation was very, very high. The drama was very high. It was very addicting, and I was really invested in the story. I didn't love the 2 male heroes. I felt like they weren't super well developed. Like, I couldn't quite ever feel in book 1 that her husband actually loved her, or that no, that's not true. I couldn't ever actually feel like she loved him. He was so clearly just a blah guy who was selfish, you know. He's very much, I think, what a stereotypical husband is, you know. And so I was just sort of like, obviously it's no competition, it's the other guy. But the other guy also didn't have a lot going for him other than he, like, stared at her with a burning intensity a lot. So, however, I was willing to overlook that because the story itself was very compelling. And so I was ready to, like, go right into book 2, you know. I feel like even though this is split up into 3 books, it feels just like a continuous book, you know. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing here, but, like, I don't know, each book has, like, an ending, but it doesn't feel like a final ending, you know what I mean? So, book number 2. I did not like as much at all. Like, the first book I gave 4 stars, and this book I'm giving 3 stars. And that's mostly because it was still a pretty compelling story. Like, I wanted to keep listening to it, you know? I wanted to keep listening to the audiobook. I wanted to see what was going to happen. Like, I feel like my driving force in reading this book is I want to know what's going to happen next. And I really love that. I didn't love the heroine in this one. The heroine in this book feels distinctly unlikable. So much of this book is her struggle with, I need to do the right thing and stay with my husband, and I love him, right? I love him, right? We're gonna do the right thing. This is what I want this happy family. But she doesn't want to have kids, and it just wasn't believable. And I don't think that she even believed it, but it got old a little bit. And I also just felt like she continuously yanked the other guy around. I can't remember his name. David. She just, like, David is the man that she wants to be with, who is supposed to be her soulmate, and Bill is her husband, and her name is Olivia. I just remembered. So David is borderline obsessed with her, wants to possess her. There were some, like, possessive parts in here, which were very good. Really liked those. But I just don't understand why he likes her so much either, because like it's set up, and it reminds me a lot of like YA fantasy romances where both of these guys who are clearly pretty good guys are fighting over this girl who just isn't that great. And I'm just sort of like, how is it that you have this super handsome wealthy man and this super secure man? They both want you and you can't decide and you're making yourself miserable. I don't know. It felt a little just repetitive because she just kept circling back through these thoughts. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The first book, it ended with her husband. The second book, it ended with her with the other guy. But the husband, I mean, she's still married, so I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm 99% sure I know who she's going to end up with. But yeah, I'm going to keep reading. I feel like this author had a really great first book. I felt like it was pretty good, very promising. And this book felt very much like she had lost her way. And the drama that she created in here seemed pretty superficial. And I wish that there had been more tension like there was in the first book. I felt like the reveal of her affair was really quick, and I didn't even actually end up feeling bad for her husband, honestly, because you just don't like him. There's nothing really about him to like. She so clearly should be with the other guy. That's something that also made it a 3-star, is that I feel like there really isn't a love triangle portion to this, because other than she's married to this guy and he's comfort. He, is there for her when she needs him, but it's so not a romance or a love match. It just feels like, as a reader, you know who you want her to be with. Like, there's no question. So, now that I've said that, I suspect the next book will make you really fall for the husband, too. I'm hoping that's what happens, because I want there to be, like, a really difficult choice. I don't want it to just be, it's clearly this guy, So I think that is what is going to happen. Is it going to work for me? I think is still going to remain to be seen, because she just didn't really build up the husband as a great character, as a hero you want her to be with. And I want that to be a more difficult decision, If I want angst and I'm reading a love triangle with cheating, I want you to give me the angst. I want you to give me the angst. Kazi's down there chewing a bone. So, I'm going to listen to that and I'll check in with you once I've finished it, probably.
It is time, it's the perfect summer night. Those 3 words are spelled out in your eyes. But before I go on, say something wrong. I just hope.
Hello, friends. Okay, so I finished the last book in the Cityscape Affair. It's called Come Undone. I just barely finished it, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. I felt like for the last 2 books in this series, it kind of went downhill. The first book in this series was I'm trying to find good lighting. I don't usually sit here. Was really strong. I felt like the first book was really strong. It had really great setup. It had great tension, great drama, just like great angst. Like everything about the first book pretty much was so good. Like just a solid love triangle romance. I really, really, really liked it, and I was very excited to see what was going to happen with the rest of the story. Mostly what I wanted to see was the push and pull of her trying to decide between the two heroes, and that just never really happened. That honestly didn't. The man that she didn't choose, it's very clear who she's not going to be with. Like, there's really no question in your mind. He is not likable, really, at all. The only thing that he does that redeems him at all is his unrelenting grip on wanting to keep the heroine his wife. But I never really understood why, because it was pretty clear that, like, he says he loved her, but he didn't act like he loved her, and she definitely didn't feel like that about him. So there was really not much about him that made you, like, root for him or even feel, like, sad when he didn't get picked. So, yeah, that was disappointing. I also felt like this entire affair that turned into a romance was 100% based on their physical relationship, and I kept waiting for something to propel the relationship further. And every time that I thought in my head, like, and I think I voiced it to you guys sometimes too, like, oh, she's just a conquest to him, or this is purely based on the physical, and he's a, every, like, insecurity that I would have thought she would have had about this relationship, like, leaving her marriage, in order for me to really believe that any affair is worth it, is, like, I need to see there's something more than just this hot guy who is very possessive of you. Like, as much as that is fun, I don't think that is enough to compel me to read 3 books of story about this, because it's just the same thing over and over again. So I didn't really love either of the heroes, but to be fair, I didn't really love the heroine either. I felt like in the beginning there was a setup for her to have some growth, for her, she got married to this guy, and later on, they had not been married very long, maybe like a year and a half. She realized, maybe I actually didn't love him, and maybe I'm missing these things in my life, so that's when the new guy enters, and I thought that was going to be like a good opportunity to show some growth of the heroine, but really she was just in the same situation with a man where she had very little agency, where he told her exactly what to do. He was domineering, he was possessive, he was protective. And that can be fun in fiction. I mean, the protective, possessive, right? There were some interactions between both of the men where they were fighting over her, and, like, come on now. I'd be lying if I didn't say I love reading that, because that was a good time. It really was. But I think my major gripe about this is the emotional connection didn't hit for me. I didn't feel it at all. I don't even think there was a real solid basis of what the emotional connection was. It was 100% about the physical. And that there are books for me where that's the basis and it develops into something more, and that works for me. It didn't here. I also felt like the last two books were completely unnecessary. Like, we did not need 2 books of that. Nothing happens. Anything, like, it's very much like internal, where she's just having these circling thoughts of, should I leave my husband? Should I not? Should I, and people would bring these, this thing I mentioned earlier, people would bring these thoughts up to her friends. They'd be like, aren't you worried, maybe it's just physical, or maybe you're just a fling or whatever. And she would have a minute and she'd be like, wait, is it just a fling? And it just, like, made me feel like, girl, are you really that dumb? I don't know. So I really liked the first book. I honestly feel like I would recommend the first book. The first book was a very fun, angsty drama fest that was soapy and super enjoyable, very fast-paced, very engaging. I really liked it. The last 2 books really went downhill from there. There was nothing really happened. We just had this continuation of her trying to decide, and the main hero that she ends with, like, constantly reassuring her, and it just was... It was nonsensical, as in, for storytelling. There was nothing driving her to make a decision to choose, and she kept regressing. Hey, what are you doing? They don't care that I'm filming. Can you believe that? So, I do like this author's writing style, and this was the first books I've read by Jessica Hawkins. I definitely want to read more. So, it was a fun read, and I think that this is, I do feel like this is a fun read, the first book. I feel like the angst that I was looking for isn't really here because, like I said, like, you don't really want her. You don't really feel sorry for the other guy. You don't really want her to be with him. It's very clear he's kind of a placeholder in the love triangle. So if you don't like love triangles because you feel like emotionally torn up about who she's going to choose, this might be a good book for you because it's very clear he's not a good choice. You don't really want her to be with him. So I really liked the first one. Solid 4-star read. Book 2, 3 stars. Book 3, 2 stars. Overall, as a series, I think it's probably a 3-star read. Would I recommend it? If you want something overdramatic in a good way, soapy, compulsively readable, addicting, with a lot of, like, taboo elements. I mean, taboo in the terms of, like, cheating and things like that. I would recommend it because that was there. But yeah, that's all. That's how I'm going to temper my recommendation. So now I'm going to finish Between Hello and Goodbye by Emma Scott. And I'll come back when I finish that to give you my final review. But so far, 40% in, I am very much enjoying it. Hello, friends. Okay, so I just finished Between Hello and Goodbye by Emma Scott. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think this is... I'm trying to decide... on my star rating. I was just looking out the window and the sun has blinded me. I'm trying to decide on a rating. I feel like this is probably a 5-star read or like a 4.5. It was very, very, very good. This was really beautiful. This was heavy at times. This was very emotional. It was very swoony. Emma Scott is definitely known for her hard-hitting emotional books, and this one definitely fits in there. There's really a lot about this book that is beautiful. Like, everything about this book is beautiful. Almost the first half is very much different in tone than the second half. It feels almost lighthearted, hopeful, happy, encouraging. It feels like we're watching our heroine Faith just on this journey of trying to discover who she is and try and get her life back on track. You know, that's the basic plot of this book. Is our heroine, she's kind of sleeping around with guys, drinking, you know, she's kind of a hot mess. She has the potential offer for a promotion at her job, which she's really, really good at. But her boss is also like, or I might fire you because you are a hot mess and you're not super reliable. So she takes some time to go to Hawaii to kind of get her head on straight and to rediscover herself and put her priorities straight. So when she's there, she goes hiking on this mountain on this very small island in Hawaii, and she falls right like the very first day of her trip. She gets injured. She has to get helicoptered out of the hike, and the first responder who gets to her is the hero, and his name is Asher. And he is a big, burly man who is very passionate about saving people. Like, he has this whole thing, like the whole book, his whole persona is around saving people because of some tragic circumstances that happened with his parents and how he saved his brother. There's an excerpt in the beginning about that. And their romance, their falling in love, was my very favorite part. It was so beautiful. I feel like it could have almost been a rom-com because the banter was top tier. They had excellent connection. Like, I could feel that these two had something more than just attraction. And I really, really, really loved that. There were times in the book that were a little frustrating as a reader, even though I also understood where the characters were coming from with the decisions that they made. And there is a warning in the beginning from the author that says that this book deals very heavily with themes of grief and loss, and I read that, and I still wasn't quite prepared. Even knowing Emma Scott, I wasn't quite prepared for what she was going to do with this story and what the grief was going to be about. So when it happened, I was a little gut punched, and I didn't see it coming. And I was really curious to see how it would affect their relationship. So most of the book from that point on is really about him our hero and heroine trying to survive after a catastrophic grief event. It's a lot about healing and healing together, and I really loved that. This book was very, very beautiful, and it was deeply moving, and it was heavy for sure. I feel like I've read a lot of books recently that deal with grief, and I don't feel like any of them were done poorly at all. This one for sure wasn't. But it's still something heavy, you know, that maybe isn't what I'm always looking for. But I loved reading this book and watching the healing happen on page, and watching these two who were clearly meant to be, their love conquer all and get their happily ever after. So it was really, really beautiful. Like I said, like the only thing, if I'm being real nitpicky, which I don't think I will, I'm going to give it a 5-star review, but the only thing that makes me a little nitpicky, and I don't know how she would have avoided this, is the big tonal shift in lighthearted rom-com to very heavy, very serious, very filled with grief and loss and healing. So it was really, really beautiful, and I enjoyed it immensely. I thought it was fantastic. So 5 stars for that one, and that has been my favorite book that I read this week. So thank you so much, Cheyenne, for picking these out. You picked some good ones. I adored Between Hello and Goodbye. It was so good, and I'm a fan. I loved it. Thank you for recommending that for me. It was everything that I look for in a book. It was fantastic. Really great writing. Excellent characters that were relatable. Really loved the heroine. And just that palpable connection you could feel between the characters, and healing, trauma, overcoming. It was beautiful. I enjoyed it immensely. I still really enjoyed my reading experience of the Cityscape Affair. I just wish that the vibes I got from the first book had continued into the other two for me, but it was still a ton of fun, and I'm glad that I read it. So thank you so much for watching, my friend. If you've made it this far, please feel free to leave me a yellow heart, and I'll see y'all in my next video.